A very good evening to everybody. A warm welcome in the Organon philosophy session. And we are discussing regarding the Stuart Close philosophy, the chapter number 8. And we have discussed in yesterday's lectures two more concepts the Hahnemann was knowing a way before than the modern science has accepted it. The first principle which he has explained is related with the principle of latency, the concept of latency. And that concept of latency was knowing to the Hahnemann. He was saying that unless and until some exciting factor cause troubles, this hidden sora never comes out. It is there inside, but unless and until something happens, it never comes out. Or even he has given the examples, any disorder, when the secondary causes are far for it, then and then only the prima causa morbi can do anything. And that was nothing but the concept of latency, which Hahnemann have told way before. Then modern science accepted it in relation to tuberculosis first and later regarding the other things also. Second concept which we have discussed was the concept of metastasis, and metastasis was also known to the Hahnemann. He has explained all three miasms on the basis of concept of metastasis. Only the in between medium was dynamic. So disease was suppressed from skin, enters into the any vital organ depending upon the situation, depending upon the susceptibility, depending upon the constitution, depending upon miasm of that individual. And that is nothing but the metastasis. Modern science accepted this concept of metastasis first in relation with the thrombosis and embolism, thereafter in relation with the cancer. So it is through the channel. They have accepted it only through the channels. But actual concept of metastasis was elaborated and explained by Hahnemann was way beyond their thinking. These both things which we have discussed in last lecture and before that, the prior concepts of homeopathic pathology, that is in the form of these three chronic miasms, psora, psychosis, syphilis, and their combination as a sauropsychotic, saurosyphilitic, or sauropsychosyphilitic, or psychosyphilitic. All permutations and combinations are always there, and those are actually the pathologies of homeopathy and not the material pathology. Material pathology is the end product of all those causes, and that's what he has explained earlier. He has given one more thing, the relation of bacteriology and homeopathy, where Hahnemann was way ahead to the modern science. It took 50 years for the modern science, the Robert Koch, to reach to the cause of cholera as a Vibrio cholerae, whereas this comma bacillus, Hahnemann have explained way early in the form of acute miasm or cholera miasm, and he has explained all the concepts which are found to be truth later by the Robert Koch. So, if you will go with this general pathology of homeopathy, you will understand that homeopathic science was way ahead than the modern science related with all terminologies. And one more thing, now he tries to explain the identity of psora and tuberculosis. So, psora, tuberculosis, the one part is always a psora. Tubercular miasm is the combination of psora plus syphilis. Both miasms comes together to form the tubercular miasm. So one part of psora is always, one part of tubercular miasm is always psora. And that's why there is a very much close relationship between the psora and tubercular miasm. And that identity, how this tuberculosis is the result of psora, that's Hahnemann tries to explain over there. Hahnemann mentions consumption. Consumption is the word utilized for the tuberculosis throughout the homeopathic materia medica as well as the repertory. Consumption in Marathi we call it Kshay Rog. Consumption is Kshay. That is the synonym for the tuberculosis. So consumption is tuberculosis. Thesis is tuberculosis. So these are the words which comes in repertory or in materia medica regarding tuberculosis. Consumption, tubercular thesis, continual or spasmodic asthma, pleurisy with or without collection of pus in the chest, hemoptysis, and suffocative bronchitis among the known tubercular chest and lung diseases as due to the psora. So he has explained that all those disorder has the base in the sora. So whether it is bronchitis, whether it is pus formation in the lungs, whether it is tuberculosis, whether it is spasmodic asthma, it is a pleurisy, the origin is always the sora. So sora is a part and parcel of this tuberculosis. He also mentions hydrocephalus, cerebral and cerebrospinal meningitis, ophthalmia, cataract, tonsillitis, cervical adenitis, otitis, gastric, duodenal and intestinal ulcers, diabetes and nephritis, rachitis and marasmus of children, epilepsy, apoplexy and paralysis, bone and joint diseases, fistulae, caries and curvatures of the spine, encysted tumors, goiter, varices, aneurysms, erysipelas, sarcoma, osteosarcoma, serous and epithelioma, and other diseases, some of which are now known and other of which are thought to be tubercular origin. So he has given list of many disorders. And these are the results of tubercular miasm, ultimately part and parcel of soric miasm. So tubercular miasm is a combination of sora plus syphilis. So it when these two miasms comes together, they produces more pathologies. Sora is generally used to produce the functional pathology, where when it gets mixed with the syphilis, it always produces the pathology, which will be a advanced pathology in the form of changes, pathological changes. So the cause is always hidden in this tuberculosis, tubercular miasm. And this he tried to explain over there, and many aspects of it he has mentioned over there. So it is a miasm which is not only the sora which is remaining at the functional level, but it turns towards the changes in the cells or tissues, producing the pathologies over there. It is a mixed miasmatic trait. And that's what one has to understand. So when we get a case of tuberculosis, when we get a case of pleurisy, when we get a case of meningitis, when we get a case of cerebrospinal meningitis or hydrocephalus, all those things have a relation between the mixed miasmatic traits. Pure sora is not there. And that if you understand this, then you will understand the depth of the remedy and you will match the remedy. So it should be matched at all levels, considering the pathology, considering the miasm. Why he is explaining all those things? He is explaining all those things in order to make your concepts very clear. He wants to make you clear that these disorders are not purely soric, because purely soric disorders always expresses functional manifestation, not the tissue cellular changes. So this is what he has explained over there. And then he says, as practically all diseases known to be due to the tubercular bacilli are attributed by Hahnemann to sora, it follows that cause is identical and that two terms, sora and tuberculosis, are synonymous. It looks they are synonymous. No, tuberculosis, one part is sora. Tubercular miasm is consisting of sora mixed with the syphilis, and that's why this develops. But both of them have a very much clear similar feature, because in both, sora is purely sora, but tubercular is sora plus syphilitic. That's why at many level they look synonymous and similar. The modern list is growing slowly by additions from time to time of other diseases found to be pathologically or bacteriologically related to tuberculosis. It is quite possible that large part, if not all, of the remainder of Hahnemann's list may ultimately be included in the modern list. Osler, speaking representatively and with highest modern authority, agrees with Hahnemann. And when he says tuberculosis is the most universal scourge of human race, scourge म्हणजे दुःखाचं कारण, reason behind this grave. So tuberculosis is the most universal scourge of human race, and that was truth. If you, at the time when we were very small, and that, or even 20, 30, 25 years back, if you go beyond, you'll find that there was an era where tuberculosis was so much increased in the population. It was increased because the miasm had changed. It was not remained purely sora, purely syphilis, purely psychotic, but miasm had changed. It becomes mixed miasmatic trait, and because of which it happened that it made a tubercular miasm very strong. Even today, the tubercular miasm is very strong. The children born today, they are more commonly of a tubercular miasm. Hahnemann chose leprosy as the typical form of ancient protein disease, which he named by the sora. Modern bacteriology finds that bacilli of leprosy resemble the tubercular bacilli in the form, size, and staining reaction, and that leper reacts to the tuberculin test. So both causes of tuberculosis and leprosy, they are from the same genus, Mycobacterium. Only it becomes changed at the level of species. Mycobacterium tuberculi is tuberculosis. Mycobacterium lepri is the leprous. Hahnemann also have utilized the same thing. He has utilized the leprosy, which was the word earlier for the sora, and Hahnemann considered that because it has very close resemblance, and that's why tuberculosis and leprosy having the common features, and that commonness is always hidden in the sora. The soric manifestations are very common. The syphilitic changes happens to be there different, and that's why both disorders comes very close to each other. Saborod said leprosy is a tubercular disease closely allied to tuberculosis. The same staining characteristics are shown by the Bacillus smegmatis, the grass and dung bacilli of Muller, the butter bacillus of the Rabinovich, and bacilli from the crypts of tonsils described by Marizunski. McConkie, through the clinical experience, came to believe and taught that heart disease, with or without valvular lesions, diabetes, rheumatism, and cancer, were tubercular in nature and origin. Whenever Hahnemann have mentioned or Close has mentioned all those names of disorders under the heading of tubercular miasm, make a highlight. If you read them again and again, then it becomes fixed in your mind. Yes, this is tubercular. Here it is not plain sora, here not syphilitic, it is mixed miasmatic trait. And then accordingly you can think about the remedy for it. It becomes, you get very easily the remedy considering the miasmatic state. And that's why all the first paragraph which we have read, all the different names of the diseases mentioned by him under the tubercular heading, just highlight that and read them again, so that you will understand, yes, this is what the tubercular manifestations are there at the disease level. So here he mentions valvular or without valvular lesions, the heart disease, diabetes, rheumatism, cancer. These are the disorders. Generally, they are tubercular in nature. Alan H.C. taught the same of the typhoid fever. The list might be extended indefinitely. The writer believes tentatively that acute anterior poliomyelitis, etiologically puzzling in spite of discovery of Flexner of its specific microorganism, is the tubercular nature and origin. So one more disorder, anterior poliomyelitis. In considering tuberculosis or sora as the fundamental disease, giving rise to many sedentary forms of disease, the specific action of tubercular bacilli must be considered as conditional. No specific organism act unconditionally. Underline sentence. No specific organism acts unconditionally. All living germs that propagate and multiply must have favorable conditions and suitable soil in which to grow. So this is very clear. Tubercular bacilli, even though it enters inside your body, it cannot do any harm. Because if things are not favorable, that bacilli will not do anything for you. Your test, Montos test might be positive. It indicates you have tubercular bacilli in your body. It doesn't mean that you have tuberculosis in your body. Unless and until conditions are favorable, this tubercular bacilli cannot harm the host. And this is what he wants to explain. Every microorganism, when it enters inside the human body, acts or produces damage only the conditions are the favorable. So in his words, unless and until the secondary causes are present, the prima causa morbi cannot do anything. Other pathogenic microorganisms besides the tubercular bacilli, notably the ordinary pyogenic organisms, play their part in the causation and maintenance of tubercular process. The pyogenic organisms may originate in the teeth, mouth, pharynx, tonsils, nose, ears, and even the lungs themselves, in the skin, joints, bones, and in short, in almost every or any organ or tissues of the body where the septic processes or lesion exist. But wherever they originate, they play their part in modifying and conditioning the activity of specific cause of tuberculosis, the bacillus of Koch, and in giving the case in its individual character. So, there are many pathological organisms or pathological microorganisms which hastens the or supports the tubercular bacilli. Modern science label it by the name of secondary bacterial infection, SBI, secondary bacterial infection. This secondary bacterial infection, when develops, it favors the tubercular bacilli to affect the human being. And that's why these personalities, if the constitution is weak, if the environment is poor, if there is not good light, not good oxygen over there, and patient is already have a weak constitution, if he is having typical tubercular constitution, tall, slender, weak, emaciated, then this bacilla develops a tuberculosis. So there are many factors comes together to develop a tubercular disease. It is not a alone cause of the disease. So Mycobacterium tuberculi is the cause of tuberculosis, is the half truth. Mycobacterium tuberculi is one of the cause of the rest remaining causes is the ideal sentence. And this is what he wants to explain over there, that the cause of tuberculosis is always hidden in all those things. Next sentence is very important. Those who are exam going, this sentence is a 20 marks question. Individualization is the cardinal principle of true pathology as well as true therapeutics. Explain in detail, 20 marks. So what he wants to explain? Individualization is the cardinal principle of true pathology. Every patient presents the disease in a different manner. If there are 3 patients of cancer of mouth or tongue, your remedy is not based upon this name. Everyone presents that in a different manner, and that's what you have to catch. Ultimately, you have to treat that individual and not its pathology, because pathology is the end product. So your pathological product might be same, but their manifestations are different. You have to catch those, then it becomes very easy. In the eager quest for the specific bacterial causes of the various diseases, the principle of logic have not always been applied, and particularly the principle known as law of causation, which teaches that every effect has a number of causes, which the specific cause is only proximate and most nearly related to the preceding series. It also teaches that specific causes may be modified in its section by the subject by collateral causes or conditions affecting both the subject and antecedent causes, so that no specific cause can be said to act unconditionally. So here he explains that there is not a single cause behind such a disorder. Prima causa morbi or proximate cause is single, but that doesn't have a capacity to produce disease unless the collateral causes are present. From Robert's word, he explains it by the name of secondary causes. Close mentions it by the name of collateral causes. So all those collateral causes in which constitution comes, in which miasm comes, in which the susceptibility comes, all those should be for. Then Mycobacterium affects you, otherwise he cannot. So same is true for the malaria. The malarial parasite entered in your body by the mosquito bite never always produces malaria, because if the collateral causes are not present, that malarial parasite can't do anything. And this is what he wants to explain over there in detail. And what he further says, applying this principle to the subject of individual disease, we find that while specific microorganisms are necessary factor as immediate or proximate causes of respective diseases attributed to them, they only act conditionally. And many modifying conditions must be considered in assigning them their true relation to the individual concrete cases of disease. It follows that microorganisms as causes of individual disease have very different kind of importance from that which is commonly assigned to them. They are reduced in rank to an equality with several other related accessory and contributing causes. The tubercular bacilli, for example, ranks in the individual only equally with the constitution, heredity, predisposition, and environment. Four causes he has mentioned as a collateral causes. Which one? First is constitution. Second is heredity. Third is predisposition. And fourth is environment. See, if Mycobacterium tuberculosis enters in your body, you immediately never suffers from the tuberculosis. If the constitution is poor, so you are having weak constitution, then and then only you will going to get the tuberculosis. Number two, heredity. There is a difference between heredity and predisposition. Predisposition is a big terminology, is nothing but the miasm. Heredity means as it is. The father was having tuberculosis, this fellow is having tuberculosis. Then definitely, but it is specifically related with the same disorder. Miasm is a big terminology where many of the disorders from the similar miasm present in the previous generation and not transmitted as it is, but transmitted as a miasm to the next generation. So first is constitution, second is heredity, third is predisposition, and fourth is environment. So environment should be very close to it. Then if it is poor, then definitely it is always helpful for the disease to produce. So if environment is bad, it affects the human health and it gives the chance to for the tubercular bacilli to produce the disease. Without that, it can't. And this is what he is explaining. Environment includes social and economic position. See, he is explaining what exactly environment means. Environment includes social and economic position or condition of life as regards means of subsistence, food, clothing, light, air, housing, neighbors, occupation, mental and physical conditions, and habits of life and thought. See, many conditions comes under the environment. It is not just a physical environment around you. It is closely related to each and every aspect around you. So it is related with food, it is related with clothing, it is related with light, it is related with air, it is related with the housing, it is related with who neighbors are there along with you. It relates with the occupation, where do you work. It depends upon mental and physical condition of the human being. It relates with the habits of life and thought. See, many factors comes in the environment. And if they are poor, then only tubercular bacilli cause the disease, otherwise not. And then to conclude this paragraph, what he says, to conduct a campaign against the tuberculosis by directing the efforts principally against tubercular bacilli, while neglecting the numerous other equally important causative factors, is futile and hopeless. Futile is म्हणजे निरर्थक, useless. So what he is saying? Because government is aiming only to kill the tubercular bacilli. And since long time they are trying to kill the tubercular bacilli, and still tuberculosis is still in the society in a big manner. Maximum number of patients are suffering from tuberculosis. Why? Because you are not tackling the collateral causes, you are hitting only the prima causa morbis, and because of which tuberculosis is not getting under the control. If you want to control the tuberculosis, all those collateral causes should be taken into consideration. You have to aim at that, and then you have to tackle the tuberculosis. You can control the tuberculosis. See the concepts of Kahneman and explained by Close, very, very clear. And if you understand them, then it becomes quite easy for us to understand whole disease process. I think it's better to stop over here. Tomorrow not tomorrow, on Monday we'll continue with the next paragraph and we'll continue with the chapter. So that's all for today. We'll meet at 8 o'clock with new remedy, that is the calcareous self. And we'll learn many aspects of calcareous self in today's session. So with same password ID, you can join us at 8 o'clock. Thanks a lot for being there, and be there at 8 o'clock.